You're not unhappy. That's what makes it hard to explain. The life is there, the job, the people, the routine that mostly works, and you show up to it. Reliably, competently, sometimes even well. But there's a layer missing, some quality of realness that you keep expecting to kick in and doesn't. Like you're living in a version of your life, rather than the life itself. Present, but provisional. Here, but not quite landed. You keep waiting for something to shift, for the moment when it finally feels like yours. It hasn't come yet. There's a well-known explanation for this feeling. Psychologists call it the arrival fallacy, the tendency to locate happiness just past the next milestone. Once the job, once the relationship, once the move, you get there, the feeling doesn't come, and the threshold quietly shifts forward again. It's a real phenomenon, but it doesn't quite fit what's being described here. The arrival fallacy is a directional problem. You're looking the wrong way, always forward instead of here. The fix, implicitly, is to redirect attention. Come back to the present. Stop chasing. But that prescription assumes the present self is ready to be returned to, that it's solid enough to land in. And for a lot of people, that's precisely what's in question. This isn't about where you're looking. It's about who's doing the looking, and whether that person feels real enough yet to fully live from. Psychologists who study identity have a name for a specific developmental state, the provisional self. It's the experience of holding your current identity at arm's length, treating who you are right now as a placeholder, functional, present, but not quite the final version, not yet authorized. The self that's here is real enough to operate from, but not real enough to fully commit to.
This state has a developmental name too. Identity moratorium, a period of active exploration without commitment, trying on roles, possibilities, versions of a future self, without yet settling into one. Theorized originally as an adolescent phase, something you pass through on the way to a more stable identity. Except for a significant number of people, it doesn't resolve on schedule. The moratorium extends, the exploration continues, and the provisional self, the temporary corridor version, becomes the one a person inhabits for years without quite noticing that's what's happened. Here's the mechanism that keeps it running. Research on possible selves shows that the version of you that you imagine becoming functions as a constant evaluative reference point. The future self isn't just a goal, it's a standard against which the current self is continuously and quietly measured, and found, by definition, not yet sufficient. The present isn't being ignored, it's being actively held at a discount. Every relationship, every choice, every version of yourself that shows up today is being treated as rehearsal, because the self that would make it real hasn't arrived yet. The waiting doesn't feel like avoidance, it feels like patience. Like reasonable, responsible deferral, the kind that makes sense given where you are, what's still unresolved, what hasn't yet clicked into place. There is always a plausible reason why full inhabitation of the present self can wait a little longer, and that plausibility is exactly what makes the structure self-sustaining. Because the threshold never arrives arbitrarily, it arrives logically. There is always something genuinely worth waiting for, a clearer sense of direction, a more stable foundation, a version of yourself that feels less uncertain than this one. The waiting generates its own justification, and so the provisional self persists, not because of confusion or error, but because it's doing something useful.
It's keeping the current self safe from full commitment. Full inhabitation means accepting that this is the version, not the rehearsal, not the corridor, the one that's actually here, making actual choices with actual consequences that belong to you. The provisional self delays that reckoning indefinitely, and it does so in a way that feels, from the inside, like nothing more than a reasonable sense that things aren't quite ready yet. The future self being waited for isn't a destination, it's a mechanism. It exists, in part, to keep the present at a distance. So this isn't a thinking error to be corrected. It isn't a habit of looking in the wrong direction, fixable by redirecting attention to the present. The provisional self isn't a mistake. It's an arrangement, one the psyche constructed for reasons that made sense, and has been maintaining ever since with considerable ingenuity. Which means the question isn't how do you stop waiting? That framing still assumes the problem is directional, still assumes that if you just looked at the present differently, it would feel inhabitable.
The more precise question is what the waiting is doing, what it's protecting. Because provisional living has a function. It keeps the current self insulated from the full weight of commitment, from the recognition that the choices being made now are not practice runs, that the person making them is not a placeholder, that this life, as it stands, is not a corridor leading somewhere more real. It's the real one, already in progress, being lived by the only version of you that has ever actually existed. And somewhere underneath the waiting, that's the thing that's always been known.
You know, you should watch this video next. I think you will like it.